Meanwhile, in a huge blow to David Cameron and his plans of any kind of Western military action in Syria, British lawmakers have voted against the Prime Minister's call for military action over the suspected use of chemical weapons by the Syrian government. Prime Minister Cameron says he will act according to the will of lawmakers and there will be no strike until a resolution by the United Nations. Meanwhile, divided opinions in Parliament are also evident out on the streets of London. Our Richard Bestick captures that story.
Syrians outside the British Parliament shouting their strongly held view that the government of Bashar al-Assad should be punished for war crimes.
Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Yet only a little earlier, the streets of the British capital had been echoing to the sounds of those opposed to military action.
What happened in Iraq 10 years ago still weighs heavily on British opinion. We went to war then, it didn't work out. There were accusations that we went to war on a false premise, and today British people are very, very reluctant for British troops to get involved in any form in the Middle East.
And in Parliament too, recalled for a debate on the Syrian crisis, consensus was also in a state of collapse. The UK Prime Minister David Cameron, though, saying the evidence that chemical weapons were used was compelling.
Eyewitness accounts of chemical-filled rockets being used against opposition-controlled areas. We have thousands of social media reports and at least 95 different videos, horrific videos, documenting the evidence.
But at the behest of the opposition, this emergency recall of the British Parliament had been reduced to debating the principle of military action.
Evidence should precede decision, not decision precede evidence.
The UK government has now published a summary of advice from its own lawyers claiming military action would be legal if there was compelling evidence of the use of chemical weapons. But according to the British Prime Minister, there will be no strike until action at the UN, although that won't silence opposing views on the streets.
Clearly the numbers here aren't great, but what they do epitomise is a division that runs right through not just the British people, but the British Parliament as well. Richard Bestick, CCTV, London.